Okay, welcome everyone for yet another Viterbi Startup Garage Oceanside chat. Today we have a special guest from the Acceleprise accelerator. It's a SaaS based technology accelerator. Is it fully virtual, Jonah?
Nope, we've got a virtual option. We've got an option in San Francisco, New York, and Toronto.
Okay. And, I think you guys are currently recruiting right now. I'm not sure if you're just open application or if it's all through referrals, but I know that you guys are looking for building out a new cohort. Is that right?
That's right. And for anyone here, I am personally accepting applications. So if you're interested after, just ping me in the chat and I'll give you my email and you can skip a whole bunch of process stuff.
Nice. So a little bit about Jonah. He is, a serial entrepreneur in that he started off as an engineer, realized that you can commercialize technology, I'm sure. 20 years of business transformation and technology where that intersects. And he's been on the founding side. He's been on founding teams, bootstrapping companies in the corporate division and venture-backed startups. He's currently the managing director of Acceleprise. So he is the guy you'd want to talk to if you were interested in that accelerator. And he supports teams there through investing and advising SaaS founders in all of North America. So I don't want to spend too much longer. I'll let you introduce yourself at length, Jonah. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. So first of all, before I get into it, feel free to hop in at any time. I do a ton of these. No question is, too trivial. I've got a ton of questions about tons of stuff. So hop in, or if you think you've got a good example that everyone can benefit from. It's a relatively small group, so please don't be shy. And appreciate that warm introduction. As was mentioned, I spent 2 full decades in startup land. I actually started in kind of a similar spot as many of you in college, where I started my first company that failed miserably, but it was started in college. And from there, I founded and ran a bootstrap business. So we took in no external capital, and I was lucky enough to within 5 years out of college, have run that up to a pretty significant revenue number. I had like 25 employees. I had no idea what I was doing, but we were profitable and sold that. And from there, I actually went over to Virgin, where I launched Virgin Gaming as running their marketing team there. And you guys won't remember, Virgin Gaming was kind of the first big esports play. So we were like the betting layer inside Madden. We were the betting layer inside FIFA. We were the first ever betting layer inside Halo. That was a lot of fun. We raised like $100 million, and then basically lit it. Sorry?
I have headphones on. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I could hear you the whole time.
All right, awesome. And from there, we managed to raise like $100 million from venture capital. And then we basically proceeded to light it on fire. Massive failure, good times. Learned a ton there. And then from there, I went off to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, where I launched their global online gaming business, which was a really, really interesting experience living in Las Vegas and seeing how a huge company dealt with a startup. And then I ran my own venture-backed startup, where I actually, moved to San Francisco for a bit to kind of figure out how that all works. And today we support entrepreneurs building their software businesses. So we've got a venture fund and we've got an accelerator, and we're funding entrepreneurs as kind of the first check-in. So everything I do is at really early stage. So because of that, and because of a few of the small successes, and mostly because a lot of the big failures, I was able to learn a lot. And one of the biggest things I learned was, in order to win on this journey in any sort of software, hardware, even services business, we're really going to need product market fit. And you hear that term a lot. And getting there is not really a linear journey. It's never like, okay, if you just do this, it's going to work. So today I'm really going to focus on some thoughts around building a winning product and the process to get there. And I'm going to use primarily software examples, but for those of you that have a consumer business or a hardware company, I'm more than happy to show you examples as well. It's actually really funny if you go into these big companies like Procter and Gamble, you know, like make Tide and Clorox, they actually have a very similar methodology, even though they're making consumer packaged goods. So these are fairly universal principles that really help you at some level, you know, to build a winning product. So first off, you know, what's product market fit? So, you know, it's really hard to put a hardcore definition on it, but basically what it means is that your customer set is going to be interested in buying this and continuing to use it. It's the most important thing to get right as a startup entrepreneur. Without this, no businesses have ever succeeded. And unless you get this, eventually you're just not going to get where you want to go. So your entire job is revolving around supporting getting product market fit. And that really does mean that you're going to have to solve a problem in a way that the customer gets excited about, even if it's, you know, a dry problem. Like, you know, we've funded companies that do like insurance renewals, but it has to be something that your customer is excited about and get some spread on its own. Because in this day and age, with all the clutter and all the different channels, it's really hard to get anywhere without that. Now, the good news is for those of you who are founders in the audience, you know the problem you're solving inside and out. You know, you or one of your team members has either lived it or has been adjacent to it, or you've heard about it so many times that you just kind of know it's there. Or else you wouldn't be starting the company. Like, why on earth would you be starting a company if you didn't intimately understand both the problem and how it works and how we need to get to, you know, solving that problem? So what we need to turn is that insight into a really winning product, and then from a winning product, ultimately into a lasting company. And again, while I invest in software, this is also true of services. It's also true of hardware. It's also true of consumer. There is no place where this one thing isn't true. If you don't have a winning product, it's going to be basically impossible to build a lasting company. So,
Hey, Jonah,
yeah.
quick interruption. You're
Yes.
not sharing your screen right now, and I'm not sure if you're using your deck.
I did not know that.
So I wasn't sure if this was like a really great intro to your deck or if you had already started.
Great intro to the deck. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right. Well, now that everyone can see my screen, so how do we get to product market fit? We want to get there one step at a time, right? So the first myth is like product market fit. You'll know it when you see it. You know, it's really obvious when you're there. All of a sudden you wake up one day and like a customer calls and is like, I love it. And then you're like, okay, we've got product market fit. It almost never works like that. So, and that's a big thing in startups in general. You know, if you're reading like TechCrunch or you're reading the newspaper, you hear about these huge fundraising rounds or these big successes, and you think that like it just clicked for them and then it was kind of all pretty simple. But when you're in even these really high growth businesses that are doing really, really well, it actually is a grind all day, every day of incremental improvements, and you get some signs along the road. But those signs along the road are what we've got to build on. So what we want to do is realize that it's unlikely we're going to get to product market fit in a day, a week, or a few months. You know, we invest as the first check in, you know, 100 businesses a year. And of those, I would say it's almost never true that they find product market fit right away. And that's okay. It's hard. I mean, that's the game. So what we want to do instead is get some of the building blocks of product market fit at the beginning. These building blocks are the pieces of your product that drive immediate value for a very small set of your overall market. So if your overall market is, let's say, new moms, or your overall market is businesses that sell, you know, direct to consumer products, or if your overall market is fitness freaks, whatever it is, what we're trying to do in the beginning is just find a building block that drives value that's immediate for some small piece of that market, and that are interesting enough that the customer wants to buy it right now. And those building blocks that deliver immediate value, those are called wow moments. And those wow moments, it turns out, are the thing that you can do as a founder right now that will be the difference between success and failure. It's actually almost binary. If you can build wow moments within your product, then you can get to product market fit and you can build a lasting business. And if you don't, then you'll always be struggling and it will always feel like a walk uphill. So there's two things we're going to focus on today that are all centered around getting to one of those wow moments. Because we've just heard, look, this is going to be really hard. You're not going to just know. You need a winning product in order to build a winning company, no matter what sector we're in, that's true 100% of the time. So there's two major things that we need to focus on to get to wow moments. So one is helping to build a process that yields these wow moments. So it actually turns out that, much like many other things, there's things we can do to build a process that are going to ensure that you get a much better output and a higher likelihood. And then the other thing is helping you run customer discovery that'll help you on that path and validate those moments for you. So if I'm going to take a kind of survey, and feel free to just do it vocally, or you can use your hand icon. How many of you are in the kind of earlier building stages, or even if it's just like part-time, thinking about building a new product or business? Okay, we've got a few. Okay, so, and how many of you are a little further down the line and have a product and are starting either financing or any other piece of this process? Awesome, we got a bunch more. Great, perfect. So the good news is that at early stages of the business, and I'll define early stages of a business, if you're doing something venture scale, is anyone that hasn't raised a couple $1 million in a seed round, or if you're running a bootstrap business, if you're below like $500,000 a year in revenue, or if it's a service business, same thing. If you're below, let's say a couple $100,000 a year in revenue, these are still like early-ish days or smaller-ish businesses, which is fine, by the way. Like, some of the most fun I've ever had have been at really small companies. But you're likely in the phase right now where we are still trying to do customer discovery and identify a repeatable sales model. Because once you've got a repeatable sales model, that's where the real magic happens. Any questions to this point? And don't be shy, shout them all out.
I feel like if I ask a question, you're going to get to it later, but finding product market fit has its challenges, I feel. Founder bias, or just kind of founders feeling completely ready to move forward in building their product, or building something and hoping that they will come kind of mentality. And I'm just wondering if you have any sound advice about what are the biggest challenges to finding product market fit, and how can you avoid things like founder bias?
Yeah, so here's the thing. So it actually doesn't matter what the founder thinks. So founders, and as one, what we're really good at is insight and recruiting and all of that good stuff. And we might even be great at building a product, but we actually don't get to decide whether or not our product's good. What the people that get to decide whether or not our product's good are our customers. And so whenever we build something, part of that process, and we're going to talk about this, is making sure that a customer set validates that they want this. And it's really easy to get false validation. I know from a lot of times when I've built products, sometimes products that ended up not working, we go to take it to people and what you get a lot is, oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. And it's like, well, would you pay me for it? And they're like, maybe, but they wouldn't buy. So what we need to do as founders is not go to people we know necessarily, but what we need to do is hear the honest truth from the market. And the honest truth is going to be driven by exactly two things. Acquisition, like are customers actually paying you for this thing? And then usage. Once they pay you for this thing, are they using it? And if the answer to either of those two questions is no, you have a problem in your product. It doesn't matter what you think. It's not that they don't get it. It just means that you're not there yet. And it takes so much iteration to get there. But the only way to truly overcome founder bias is to have a set of metrics around customer acquisition and usage and be relentlessly focused on them. And if you're not getting the returns that you want, then there's a problem in something you're doing. And that problem usually starts at the beginning with not having at least 1 to 3 wow moments that drive those two metrics, customer acquisition and activation. So these wow moments are always going to have a couple things in common. They're going to solve the primary pain point that you're trying to solve. So whatever your company is, you're obviously trying to solve a pain point that you've had or you've seen or people you know have had or your customers had or you've experienced at school or whatever. So it'll solve the primary pain point in some new way. If it's software, it'll be contained in one screen. You'll be able to just see it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If it's not software, if it's hardware, it'll be in like something that you can see pretty instantly. It's not going to be a huge series of actions. It's going to be like, I immediately see why this is valuable. It should be something pretty self-explanatory. A lot of times when you leave, and this is another founder bias thing, when we leave and they're like, they didn't get it, that's because the value is there likely, but probably just buried. So to an early adopter, if you were to show it to someone else, if it's technology, tech savvy, or a consumer, like again, to use the fitness example, if there's a fitness fanatic and your fitness product who's intended for that market, and this is a really heavy user, one of your friends, and she always has the newest everything and they don't get it, obviously one person is a small sample size, but a group like that, to an early adopter who gets the problem, shouldn't need a lot of explanation. And if it needs a lot of explanation, then you probably haven't driven the wow. And then it should also deliver on what your core value proposition is without anything else. So if you're like, my value proposition is I'm helping to solve this problem, this one wow moment should at least go some of the way towards solving the entire reason why your company exists. I don't know if that's helpful at all as a fairly long answer.
Oh, that was great.
Perfect. So a wow moment is when your target knows they need you and your product. The faster they see the moment and the easier it is to see, the faster you're going to get customers or more customers. This is true 100% of the time. The faster we can just put a wow moment in front of someone and immediately get it, the better off. So I'm going to give some examples of wow moments now, and then I'm just going to ask the group to shout some out. So here's some logos of some great B2B software companies. We don't have to use these. If you've got your own, shout them out. Does anyone want to give me an idea of what a wow moment might be in any one of these products? I can give an example of, okay, Google when it first came out, which for many of you will be like basically forever ago. When it first came out, the wow moment was I put in a search term, I hit search, and less than 1 second later, the top result was actually relevant. That was wow back in the day. And that's a universal one. An obvious wow moment that everyone knows, when Steve Jobs got on stage to unveil the new iPhone and didn't have a keyboard and it worked. And everyone was like, wow. And those are some legendary ones. But there's tons of others. So Procter & Gamble, again, to use a consumer example, says that they always have 2 wow moments. And if you walk into Procter & Gamble headquarters in Cincinnati, when you walk into their main lobby, there's 41 products behind a piece of glass in their main lobby. And those are their $41 billion plus brands that they've built. They've built 41 of them. And every one of those two, they say, have two wow moments. The first time a product sees the packet, a consumer sees the package, and the first time a consumer uses it. Those are their wow moments. So does anyone want to share their view of a wow moment from either one of these products or a product they use every day or love? Come on, don't be shy.
Yeah, I can share one. When we were building our first website, a wow moment for me was with Squarespace. I have no web development background, and to put together something that actually looked decent fairly quickly was a wow moment.
Perfect. Great example. Anyone else?
I think with-
Yeah, I can give one. Like I know for DocuSign, like there was just an instance where like I waited to the last second to have to turn in a form, like a PDF or something. And I think with DocuSign, I was able to do it right from Google Docs, like right from my email. So I'd say like that was like a wow moment for me, just like not having to print it out and then sign it and then rescan it. Like it was all just like on my computer.
Awesome. And so perfect examples, right? Squarespace whole things is website for everyone. And what Gabe just said is, I didn't have a lot of experience. I went on and immediately it was clear that they were going to fill their, their core company thing. It was wow. Same thing we heard DocuSign, right? So a couple others, and they can be these logos, they can be other things, they can be consumer products, they can be hardware, anything at all. A couple more examples. Okay. Anyone? All right. So I'll do
I guess
Square.
one
I
example.
have one. Oh,
Go
sorry.
for it. Yep. Fire.
We're both named Laura, so it's hard to.
Yeah, you
I'm
go
going to
first,
call on Laura
Davis.
I love this product called Pocket, which helps you just like save things to read for later. And I guess for me, I had kind of two wow moments. One was that they have a Chrome extension, so when I have all these tabs open at the end of the day of articles I didn't get to read, I can just save them. And two is they have like a download feature, and then I can read offline when I'm like when I used to fly before COVID, when I'm on planes.
Awesome. Perfect. And so they
Yeah.
immediately put that stuff in your pocket, just like they claimed. Laura?
And another one is with Figma. It's a design and prototyping UI UX tool, but you can use it for anything, including making PowerPoints and stuff. But when I designed a user interface design in it, it showed the CSS and HTML or like the code on the side of the screen. And so you could copy and paste it and actually code from scratch just based on the visual design you made.
Awesome.
I can give a hardware example. I don't know if anyone's heard of Dyson, sort of vacuum cleaner, designed and made in England. And it's just the best thing that I've ever used. It's just so easy and it works really well. And it just does the job better than anything else that I've tried. So just pointing that out.
Perfect example. Legendary hardware design, legendary industrial design. Anyone else?
I have a simple one. One moment I had a wow moment was for a link tree, which if any of you guys haven't used it, all it is just like a page of links that you could put on either your Instagram or you could use it for like your business if all you have is links that you want to redirect people to. I guess it just made me go wow that like it's something so super simple and like so like diluted down to the bare essence of what you might need, and it's so widely adopted. People use it for everything, to promote their music, to promote their couture boards or things they call it. Yeah,
That's a great example. That's an awesome example.
I
Okay.
have one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And this is a recent one, and honestly, I don't know if the fidelity of this brand new app is going to make it, but I found this app called Truebill, and essentially it connects to all of your bank accounts and immediately just processes the patterns that it finds and then highlights things that are, what they would consider subscriptions, what they would consider, your bills, what they would consider kind of one-off purchases, and just provides you that detailed information and also sends you notifications when things don't look good. And I never once felt like an application that had anything to do with finances was ever really looking out for me. And I feel like that was the point of the app. And I never felt it was within the moment that I signed up, I had more information than I've ever had on my finances ever. And so I was definitely wowed. And I think I called like 15 people right afterwards and told them they had to get it.
Amazing. Awesome. So I think everyone gets it, and you can see the threads, right? It's all just like one moment where you're like, this is really delivering. So, here's another one, right? So here's a wow moment that really helped one of our companies start to be able to sell. So Private AI is actually a portfolio company of ours. And if I were to explain in words, it's an API that redacts data in real time so that it never gets to company servers. So just redacts it from your phone or from your computer so that the company never has it in the first place, which doesn't seem like it can have a wow moment. But then they built this little thing on their website. And they went from selling nothing to selling a lot with this. Same product, but the difference now is everyone can see. This is what our product does in real time. No words, no explanation required. We do that. And that simple change took them from same product to being this, much larger business that actually literally just was able to raise a round from Microsoft. So good example there of, you might have all the elements that are there. The product was the same. The machine learning on the back end was the same. The use cases were the same. The clients were the same. But they got that wow, and they'd sit on sales calls and be like, wow. And that drove their everything, which is what I really want to drive home. So there's two places where you're really going to be helped by the wow moments. One is acquisition, and the other is activation or use. So awesome. So I think we all can, I would say most, if not all of you at this point, definitely, like, you can think of wow moments in your day-to-day usage or that you've built or that you've interacted with. How do we get there? So the first piece is actually the most important, which is, and this is how we overcome founder bias. And this is why when you hear the phrase, get out of the building. So what we need to do at the beginning is distill down. And we heard a great example of distilling something down, with Linktree to its simplest form. But we need to go out and ask our customers, do you have this problem? What would solve this for you? What would you pay for? And walk me through how this problem works for you. And you need to do this with a whole bunch of folks. And then once you have a very clear idea of what outcome they're looking for, you're going to collect those core themes that people will pay for as part of a solution. So a perfect example would be like finances. People are like, look, I just don't have a good view. Like, I get these random bills and like, I don't even know if I still have this subscription. I can't even tell what I'm spending. And you'll hear this from person over person over person. And then, the answer is Truebill. There's a wow moment where it just says, running your thing. And then it can show you exactly by category what's going on and when they think something is out of order. Or Dyson, everyone's like, it's really heavy to carry around a vacuum. Bags are ridiculous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fan blades can hurt my kids. The Dyson fan is born. So you take all those collections of problems and you find the core themes that people will pay for. And then you take all those things and you stack rank by value. How can you cleanly deliver a quick solve for one or more of these chargeable value pieces? And the key here is not quickly, like how do you build it quickly, but how do you quickly from the consumer's perspective, or if you're selling to a business from a business perspective. With Squarespace, if the problem is coding up a website, how can I quickly communicate to someone that they no longer need those skills? How can I quickly communicate to someone that, that in Figma, like you don't need to, you can start your coded solution here. And it's just the code just appears. You don't need to explain it. Anyone who's going to be able to use that code knows what HTML and CSS looks like. And Figma is actually a great example of a bunch of wow moments stacked together to build a wow tool. There's no one thing that they're doing that's new. You can expect code on your elements on your browser. You've been able to do that for like 10 years. It's not new technology. It's just a new application. And because of the UI and the use case, it becomes wow. So you've talked to a bunch of customers, you've gotten some common core of all the value they want. You've stacked ranked the ones that you think can be most valuable. From here, we just build our clickable prototypes and try it out. Is this actually building value for people? Is it easy to understand what it's doing? And you don't need to code a line if this is software. If it's hardware, you know, same thing. It can be, and we see these a lot on the crowdfunding sites, videos, right? It doesn't actually have to exist. It just needs to be something where someone can get it. And from there, what you want to do, and this is the biggest way to make sure you actually have something before fully committing, go back to your customers and say, hey, you said if I solved this problem, you would pay for it. Would you buy this? And if they say yes, then you've got a new customer and you can build it. And if they say no, then it's why not? And you keep doing that process until they say yes. What the mistake I've made and a lot of people make is they get really sure and then don't run this process. And unless and until you have a wow moment, you might have enough different collection pieces of value that people buy it because on aggregate it's got value, but it's going to be really hard to spread and build that as a business. If you look at every great software and consumer business, they all have an embedded wow moment, all of them, because it's the wow moments that actually make things take off. So any questions on this? Because this product is literally the core of any startup product development, and it takes the MVP or minimum viable product concept, and it breaks it down even further too. You're not trying to build a minimum viable product. You're actually trying to build a wow moment and then a product or a workflow around that. Because you'll know when you hit a wow moment, and then you know you can go off to the races with everything else. Any questions on this? Because I think this is probably the most crucial piece.
I have a question. So I often find, especially with SaaS solutions, that the customer that you're solving the problem for might not actually be the one who decides whether or not that business is going to pay for it or not. And sometimes our founders struggle because, you know, through customer discovery, they're getting a lot of really great feedback and they definitely are solving something, but they're not speaking to necessarily the, you know, the direct customer, which would be the person who makes the decision on paying for it and actually the one who needs to buy in on that solution. Do you have anything to say about that and how to handle that? And, you know, any advice as to, you know, overcoming that as a hurdle?
Yep, so there's two embedded things there. One is on the wow moment piece. So the wow moment, so let's pretend I have a team. So when I used to run marketing for Virgin, right? I'd have a big team of however many people. And let's say there's a great SEO tool and it makes, you know, my junior SEO's person life so easy, et cetera, and they come to me and they're like, I want to spend $12,000 a year on this SEO tool because it does this. And I'm like, well, how's it going to change results? And they're like, well, you know, it's going to make it easier to do this, this, and this, and this. Except the reality is I might not care that it makes it easier. I just want to know how it's going to change the results. So the wow moment for the end buyer is different than the wow moment for the end user. So I'll give the example of Figma. At this point in my career, I'm mostly a consumer of Figma. I don't really build stuff in it. So why would I want Figma to be used? Well, I want it to be used for a couple of reasons, right? One is it's really easy for me to see workflows and a variety of different things, everything from PowerPoints to UI, UX. So it's an easy way for me to consume it. That's my wow moment. I can see the entire project and someone's thinking in one spot. Whereas for the user, what makes it good for them is that it's so easy to use a variety of these tools. That's why I said in the beginning, it's 1 to 3 wow moments. As product complexity goes up, you need to think about who are all of your potential, who's your buyer and who's your user. And you need to have a wow moment for each in those mid-market, high contract value situations. If it's a cheaper price or something that's going to spread person to person, then you just need user wow moments. But as the complexity, as the price goes up, product complexity goes up, and what becomes a minimum viable product goes up, and your number of wow moments need to go up. There needs to be two, one for the person signing the check and one for the person using the thing. And it could be that they're the same, but quite often they're not. And if you're neglecting that higher value, then you haven't built enough wow moments to be successful just yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions on this? All right, here's the other big mistake I used to make all the time and now only make sometimes. So when I hear entrepreneurs, whether I'm buying stuff or trying to fund businesses, talk about their problems, talk about their company, what they always talk about is their technology and their product and how it works. Customers don't care about your solution. They care about their problem. So in my SEO example, I don't actually care about how the SEO solution works. I want to hear about how I'm going to rank #1 on Google, or how I'm going to spend less money doing it, or how my team's going to spend less time doing it, or how we're not going to need to pay that agency anymore. I don't care how it works. I just want it to work. Google. I don't think anyone really knows how Google's search algorithm works, except for the people that work at Google, but I don't care. I just want to return relevant results. So same thing with Figma. You don't really care how it's generating HTML. You just care that it is. So a big mistake people make all the time when they're talking to me about what they built is they tell me a lot about what they built. But you want to flip that on its head. What you want to talk about is what the results it's going to generate and how it solves the problem for the end user or for the person signing the checks. Or if you're a consumer, how this is going to make life better. The only time you're going to talk about your actual solution is to talk about how it's different once you've gotten people past the point of, you know, why should I care about this? It always starts with why. So there's a couple ways to see whether or not you're actually driving customer value. And this is, again, this is how we overcome founder bias, is we make sure that we're solving their problems. And we can find that out qualitatively. What are they saying? And by the way, this is cool is the ultimate no information statement. We're humans, right? Most people, there are obviously some people, most people want to be nice to other people. So people telling you it's cool is just, it's a no information statement. What you want to know is, are they actively referring you to other people? How are they reacting to demos if you're doing demos in software? Or how are they reacting to your hardware if they're doing demos with their hardware? Or how are they reacting when they see videos, if it's a consumer product, et cetera, et cetera? And good signs are when they say things like, oh, this would really help with problem X. Oh, this would, you know, does this integrate with thing Y? How do you handle, like, you know, those kind of questions are good. Questions around the problem or anything like that are bad. And it's really hard to actually take that to heart. But if they're not reacting with positive buy signals, you're not there yet. And then the other thing is, you know, if you're talking to them, will they get back on with you? Can you get more of their time? Have you shown them something interesting and novel enough that they're willing to give you time? And then there's quantitative. And then this is like, how many of your demos are actually converting to pricing and customers? If it's a landing page, whether it's consumer or not, how many of those people are actually signing up? How many people are using? And I encourage you to be pretty rigorous and cynical around all these metrics, because otherwise as founders, because you definitely have, it's very rare I see a founder with the wrong insight. It happens, but it's very rare. So because you have the right insight, you need to be really aggressive with yourself of making sure you've turned that insight into the right value for customers. And if you're not being really aggressive with yourself, it's unlikely that anyone's going to be it with you. And you're going to end up spending more time than you want to get to where you want. Any questions on this? So yeah, this is just what I was saying. No one's just going to straight up tell you that your baby's ugly. I've worked for 7 startups, some of which have failed. And I've had one customer ever be like, this is terrible. This is never going to work. Same thing with VCs. When VCs are like, you're too early. You're too early is VC. It's cool. That doesn't mean anything. What you want to get is real feedback if you can. So let me circulate with my team. I need to check with X. Those are all bad. We could use it for this thing is good. Any conversations about pricing is good. Does it have a security feature? That's good. Now they're starting to think about if they could use it. This would have helped me with X. This is really good. If you're not hearing those last couple and they likely agree with your problem, and it's really easy to hear the first half of they like the product when actually they just agree with you on your insight. So make sure you're separating out those two. Do they agree with my insight, or are they having a wow moment with me? And then the numbers, this will depend on what type of business you have. These are all SaaS metrics, but SMB, low touch, and I'll post this, but there's Craft Ventures and a bunch of others have really, really good works on metrics here, but just make sure you're tracking metrics. So I'll go quick with this, but this is true for consumer and small to medium business tools. This is something I see a lot that I used to make this mistake also, where you try to get people to sign up for a trial, whether it's customers or small businesses, and then behind that sign up, you've got your wow moment, and then you try and convert them. That's actually wrong. What you want to do is you want to have your wow moment and then get them to sign up. Otherwise, you're losing like 90% of the people right off the hop. So you just want to drive them to actually be like, whoa, I need this. That's why Dyson has retail stores in like really high traffic malls. Those stores lose money, but it's so you can walk by and try and then go home and buy it on Amazon. Right? That's why a lot of these things are done that. That's why Figma is free to sign up for, because they're like, you'll sign up, you'll be like, wow. And then if you like it enough, you'll convert to paid. Same thing, Slack, free to sign up for, but then, oh, you want to save your next 10 messages, paid. And that's how they captured the market. So you definitely want to be in the bottom universe of thing. Same thing, demos, if you're doing software or hardware, the biggest mistake I always used to make is I'd walk through the entire product. No one wants to walk through your login screen or your user admin. It's all they want to see is the wow moment. Confirm their problem, show them the wow moment, and get them talking. And then drive home value. We want to spend all our time on wow moments and problems and none of our time talking about product. Again, they don't care about your product. They just care about your problem. Here's an actual hands-on approach. I won't go through this today, but I'll leave it with you guys of an actual how to run demos that convert like 5 times higher than the other ones. And this is true for any type of demo you're running. So wow, wow, wow. That's what you want to hit. You don't want to walk through the product. If I was showing you Figma, I'd be like, what are you using it for? And you'd be like, I need to do UI. And then I'm coding that up on like a little thing that we're going to use to prototype before we send it to the React folks. Okay, great. This is this feature, this feature, this feature. Any questions on the how to surface these wows? Okay, so in summary, we all need product market fit, or we're not gonna have good companies. Wow moments are the must-have pieces of any product. If your product's not working and you're not getting traction at all, it's not more features, it's you're dancing around the wow and you don't have it yet, likely. That's not true 100% of the time. It's true 95% of the time. Once you have a wow moment, adding features adds customers. If you don't have a wow moment, adding features doesn't add anything because there's no wow yet. So unless your new feature is a wow moment, you're still kind of circling. And what you want to do is start with the wow moments and then build out. All the login, all the workflow, all the dashboards, those are typically around wow moments. There's some exceptions where the dashboards are data they've never seen before. You get to wow moments not by sitting in a room, but by talking to customers and relentlessly iterating on them with like a really, really, really cynical eye towards your own stuff. There's qualitative and quantitative methods to know once you have one. And then in anything you're doing, you need to put those wow moments first. In Procter & Gamble, they pay for positioning of Tide in the aisle, so it catches your eye when you turn your corner. In Figma, they make sure your time to value is really slow, really low. And I can do this with pretty much everything. And that's it. I am here to answer questions about this or literally anything that might be helpful for this group.
All right, I encourage people who have questions, obviously, to turn on their cameras, use the hand raise function just so that it can be a little bit more organized. Thank you so much, Jonah. This was really thorough. There were a few slides actually that I want to spend some time on. So it'd be great if you could share your deck with us, and then I can share it to the teams in the garage. But I think it's my main question is just about where these wow moments happen traditionally, right? Where are the best places to have them? Obviously, if you're doing your rounds of customer discovery, you're creating them for yourself because you're setting up demos and meetings with people. But what about, you know, other areas outside of that? For instance, you were using that example of the web page where, you know, they were essentially demoing the product's technology right there, so you could just see it happen. So I feel like a web page is obviously, you know, like your web page is a great place. But what about you know, in more of a marketing way? I mean, is it even possible to
So if you look at all the great Kickstarters, what do almost all of them have? A 20-second video where you're like, I want that to be a thing. It can be of a product that totally doesn't exist yet, right? But like, you're like, oh, I want that, right? And that's marketing. So that's what Private AI did. With consumer products, quite often it's one of the first things, if it's digital, it's one of the first things you see when you see it. So again, iPhone, no screen. You know, with hardware products, same sort of thing. You want it right up in front so they can see it almost right away, right? Like if you look at, I mean, yeah, consumer electronics, obviously, like televisions, they want to get you with their brightness and clarity that you can see from far away in the store. You know, with Sonos, they try and get you with sound, and then ease of use is the second wow moment, which is kind of downstream. So if it's consumer and small business are actually kind of sold the same, because small businesses are basically just a collection of consumers. You want that right up front in any way that you can. And if it's mid-market or enterprise where there's more than one person making the decision, you get to be in charge of when they see it. So you can put it in your marketing materials, and you can also control it in demos. So it actually matters less what the positioning is there. But for consumer and small business, especially with today's attention spans, people want to see it right away. Think about how all the great social apps spread. TikTok, immediately clear why this is cool, right? Instagram, same thing, that when that came out. So those are the things that spread almost 100% of the time.
Okay, we have a question from John. Go for it, John.
Hey, Jonah, thank you for this presentation. I was just curious, does this all work with regulated industries like medical devices? You still want to go for the wow, same kind of concept, or is it a little bit different when it's
so that's
the FDA breathing down you?
Yeah, that's more of a demo style environment, right? So medical devices, you're presumably selling into whether it's insurers, whether it's hospital networks, whether it's doctors. Those are people that are going to want to see it first, right? It's just not going to be in their hands unsupervised. So you get to control it. So let's say it's a new modality that's going to lead to better patient outcomes. So maybe the wow moment's in the data, right? Or maybe the wow moment is, you know, we invested in a surgical suite that, you know, does 3D viz for brain surgery because so that, you know, measure twice, cut once, basically, except done by geniuses, and I don't actually understand everything they do, but whatever. So there, the wow is like 3D brain imaging that neurosurgeons had never seen before. Not that a neurosurgeon would ever admit to being wowed, but you know, so you get to, the good thing is in most, without knowing details of your business, and no thing is always true, you get to control where the wow moment is. So it doesn't matter where it's placed so much as it matters where the placement of the communication is, and you're 100% in control of that. Once they're using it, it has to be there.
Great.
And
Thank
literally
you.
it could, like, what was the wow of, okay, that's political, but whatever. What was the wow of the vaccines? When everyone saw the phase 3 Pfizer data, everyone was like 92%, holy shit, right? That's the wow. Because there's nothing to see. I can't see it. That's the wow moment. When that headline came out and insert your paper of choice, it's like, oh, these things actually work. That's the wow. So that's true a lot of times in medical.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, Laura.
Yeah, so I had a question based on the is it working by the numbers slide that you showed. What is the best way to track those conversion metrics? Like, is there a good system? Because if you have multiple people on your team possibly working on sales, like, should you just use a Google Drive, or is this something you can manage in a CRM, or how do you manage those conversion metrics and like demo to next step?
Yep. So in the beginning, you know, as you're smaller, and not saying that you are, Google Sheets is totally fine. From there, honestly, you can get like a Trello account, and literally just each stage becomes and you can just slide them along to the right. You can use CRM. It doesn't matter so much, honestly. You can use, you know, a Chrome extension like Sorted, which has, like, you know what I mean? Like any one of those things, as long as you're tracking, you know, leads, qualified leads, demos, signups, paid, and then usage. And then usage, you're getting into like Hotjar or Segment, or, you know, any one of those things, Google Analytics, I don't know, your product, however you're tracking that. As long as you've instrumented some sort of product data, and you've instrumented some sort of sales data, you'll see. And then the other thing is record your demos. If you've got a sales team, definitely record your demos. Because what you'll do is you'll record the ones that worked and try and figure out, where did the client say, wow, and then the ones that didn't work, and like, they're brutal. Like, I used to watch these demos where the customer would be like, why am I still here? And like checking emails on Zoom. It's brutal. But unfortunately, as a founder, you guys have decided to, you know, do something incredibly hard that's not fun lots of the time. So it's better off to just face it as painful as it can be. And man, some of those are painful. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving over to Hazel.
Hi, Jonah. Can you guys, sorry, am I having issues with my camera right now? But can you hear me?
You're coming through loud and clear.
Awesome. Well, we have one thing working, which is nice. Really great talk, Jonah. Really concise insights. I can save a lot of heartache and time, definitely. My name's Hazel. We have a digital health platform that is a lot like a Zapier for managing workplace corporate health risks for COVID, but also, you know, endemic things like the flu and just workplace infections in general, just to help businesses reopen safely and stay open. So we have a very modular platform where we can do a lot of different things, right? But ultimately, we're targeting B2B enterprise where the buyer is different than the user. So in the case of like a Zapier, was wondering how you would approach selling that in order to, like, we have some pilot clients who have signed on and from that end on the SMB side, but I'm trying to prepare our approach to the more enterprise side. So yeah, I was just wondering how you would approach if you had a Zapier like product where, you know, the decision makers and the way things are made on that end are a lot more complex, how you'd approach selling that.
So I can give you, I mean, this is one of those, like, you shouldn't diagnose people from afar. I've obviously, that was a really good description, but I've only spent 1 minute, but I can give you a couple options because the only people I'm really scared about in the startup ecosystem are people that are really sure, because no one in history has ever done exactly what you're doing. So there's a couple models. So one model is the Box model, Box, Yammer, Slack. And when they built enterprise versions of their product, they did what's called top-down, bottom-up. So they released so like Zapier, they've got a free version of their product, which would then go through the organization, and people would be using it because it was just a better way to do stuff. And then at Box, each salesperson would literally have like a control module, and you had to sign up with your work email. And when more than 10 people from any one company would sign up, they would then call the CTO or the CIO and be like, hey, CIO of Microsoft, I've got 47 people storing private company Microsoft data on our servers. Want to talk about it? Yammer did the same thing. Microsoft ended up buying them, right? Yammer did the same thing. It was like a corporate social network. Like, hey, 312 of your employees all have profiles on our thing because you guys clearly aren't doing this well. Want to talk about it? So you could do that and again, I don't know the details of your product, where you get your SMB version that sounds like it's working. Congratulations, it's really hard. And get that to spread within an org. And then once you see a couple people within that org, you can then go to the top person. You'll have a much higher uptake rate and be like, look, here's the data. Here's what they're using it for. Clearly, they don't have a solution internally. No, of course, I'm not going to tell you who. And then reach out to those people that are using it and try and get a consensus of the user, that 2 tiers again of who's buying it. And just make sure when you're talking to that upper tier, they're probably not going to be users. So what they want to hear is about the benefits. And then they'll go to the people using it and be like, is it awesome? And then if you can sell them on the value prop, you've got a shot. So that's methodology 1. And methodology 2 is more of like a mid-market motion where you're literally like demo, explain the value prop, and then you try and get adoption top down. Both have been effective many, many times. It really comes down to what type of product you built and its ability to spread with or without your sales help.
Got it. Yeah, that's the goal, is just like set them up. And then we have a marketplace for all the hardware, like the wearables and biometrics, where it's as easy as like pairing your Bluetooth to the platform. And then you can just get the feeds and get the text message and automation. So, yep. Okay. Got it. This is really good advice. Thank you so much, Jonah.
All right. We have time for one more question. We have Julie.
Hi, Jonah. Thanks for your talk. It's really helpful. And right now, me and my co-founder are building a mobile app. And we agree there's a feature that is a must-do and can solve the problems differently than the current market, than the current available apps have. However, my co-founder and I are basically debating upon whether to add another feature or not, because I think that feature does not really bring us the wow moment, and it's kind of divert our presentation of product. But the other co-founders really likes that idea. I would like to know, in this case, how can I communicate effectively with her, and what's the optimal way to act?
So the UFC founders, they were brothers, and they actually had a rule that when they couldn't agree, because they each owned 41%, that they would wrestle until one of them. I'm actually not making that up. Don't do that. So it's a true story. Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta. Anyways, no. So so here's the thing. So the honest truth is, you're not going to know who's right until you get some customer feedback. So how do you go through to get customer feedback without doing all the work? You can ask them. So there's a couple ways, right? You can just launch a prototype. Like, is this a big feature to code up?
It is, but I think as for the prototype, it's fine.
Yeah. So I would prototype
it's
it,
not hard.
ask 5 customers, and what you need to communicate to your co-founder is say, look, obviously I think I'm right. Obviously you think you're right. Obviously it's not up to us to decide if we're right. It's up to the market to decide if we're right. So I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm willing to spend some resources on prototyping this if you're willing to meet me halfway and let the market decide. Because the market deciding there is a right answer here. And the right answer is that neither of you decide, your customers do.
Yes.
So you just need to get them to there.
Yeah, thank you. But right now we really have a feature that we both agree that it will bring that wow moment. So in that case, are we just gonna focus on that, or add its features and test it?
If you both agree that you've got a wow moment and you're doing a backlog, then I think with you and a co-founder, the thing you both agree on should go ahead of the thing that just one of you agrees to.
Okay.
Right. And just be like, hey, look, I'm willing to do the thing you want. I'm willing to test it, but can we please start with the thing that we both agree is awesome? I don't think you need to get any more, I'm clearly a big fan of direct communication, but yeah, look, I don't agree with you, but I'm willing to meet you halfway because you're my co-founder, but let's do the thing we both think is awesome first.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are at the time. I don't have any more hands raised. Jonah, thank you so much for coming and doing this presentation. We hope to have you again in the future. Just a reminder to any of the teams on Acceleprise is currently in a recruiting phase. If you guys are interested, our B2B SaaS model technology company. How would you like people to reach out to you, Jonah?
I just dropped my email in the chat.
All right, email's in the chat. You can also find Jonah's LinkedIn on the Splash That page for the event. And we recorded all of this, so if you guys wanted to review the video, that'll be out. I will send out all the transcript of the chat, the video link, and hopefully the deck from Jonah for you guys as a gift for coming and being with us today. I will be sharing again the Oceanside chat series that's coming up in June and July very shortly. We're just developing the marketing material for that. We look forward to seeing all of you guys on all of those Oceanside chats. Thank you for coming. Jonah, you're amazing. I can't thank you enough. Do you have any parting words of wisdom right before you leave?
Wisdom I don't have, but starting things up is really, really, really hard. And sometimes when you hear people's bios at the beginnings of these, I just want to let you know for every single one of them, it was just as hard too. And if they disagree, they're lying.
Thank you. Okay, everyone enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Have a great afternoon.
Bye all, thanks for your time.
Bye, thanks. This was awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, thank you.